Have you ever considered why friends sometimes become rivals? Why the same hands that once shook in a sign of friendship are now the very ones concealing a dagger behind a person's back? This isn't just some story, it's the real world of global politics. And in this story, the latest major player is India. The real question in this endless cycle of friendships and betrayals is, what's the actual cause? There was a time when India simply walked alongside its allies with nothing more than a smile. But today, India is engaged in an entirely new game of survival on its borders. A powerful technology has been put in place that gives no hiding place for enemies. It's a radar system reinforced by artificial intelligence that can track even America's every move. So tell me, if every spy is caught the very second they enter its range, what does that mean for the world order? For India, there is now only one guiding principle: if you throw a stone, we will respond with a wall. America thought its satellites could secretly watch over India without being noticed. But India made a move so unexpected that even Washington was rattled. When do you think a friend's true face is shown? During easy times or in moments of real trouble? America had long been proud that nothing could escape its watchful eye. But the moment it realized India's radar was detecting its satellites crossing borders, it was shocked into silence. Does pride make a person stronger, or does it blind them? India's way of thinking has changed. It is no longer just a country focused on trade or partnerships, but one that is preparing for defense and sharp counterattacks. And when America found out that India was no longer waiting quietly, but was prepared to respond to every move, a sense of unease started to creep into its heart. Tell me, can you ever avoid fear, or must you always face it directly? This isn't merely a story about radars. It's the story of a nation realizing that even behind a friendly smile, betrayal can be waiting quietly. And when companionship turns into deception, the response must be given in a way that those who deceive understand best. Do you believe betrayal should ever be forgiven? America saw itself as the world's teacher, but India has now shown that the real master is the one who recognizes an enemy at the perfect moment. America is stunned, confused, and asking itself how India managed to gain this kind of power. What's your opinion? Does true power come from wealth or from an unyielding will? For America, this discovery felt like a sudden clap of thunder. It assumed its satellites would cross silently, watching everything. But India had already solved the puzzle and prepared its shield. That's the very core of true security. What's your view? Does real defense rely more on weapons or on intelligence? India has sent a clear message to the world. If you come as a friend, we will welcome you. But if you come as an enemy, we will expose you. And this message has reached America's ears in no uncertain terms. What do you think? Does being humiliated weaken a country or force it to become stronger? In global politics, the most dangerous change is when a friend becomes an enemy. India has understood that it must learn to see past the masks, even those worn by supposed allies. This revelation still echoes uncomfortably in Washington's halls. Tell me, if you realize the truth too late, does it destroy everything you once believed in? America's shaken, the world is surprised, and India is establishing a new standard for defense. This isn't just about a border. It is about the clash of friendship and betrayal. And whenever loyalty turns into deception, history itself writes the answer. If you were in India's position, would you try to save the friendship or strike back? India is no longer the quiet watcher it once was. For decades, it believed in the promises of allies, trusted in their smiles, and accepted their handshakes. But now, it has woken up to a darker reality. Even those who are closest can use you for their own gain. America thought India would forever live in its shadow. But this time, India has stepped into the bright light of its own strength. A nation that once depended on patience has now chosen power. Do you believe patience is always a good thing? Or can it sometimes become a weakness? When America realized its satellites were no longer unseen by India, it wasn't just worried, it grew restless. For a superpower that thrived on secrecy and control, losing its invisibility was like losing its crown. Imagine the pride of a giant suddenly made uneasy by the rise of a nation it once underestimated. This is not only about defense. It is a reminder that underdogs don't stay underdogs forever. Do you think arrogance destroys empires faster than their enemies do? The world now looks at India with fresh eyes. For years it was called a rising power, a growing economy, a nation on its way. But today, that saying has changed. India isn't just on its way, it has arrived. By putting defense before diplomacy, It has shown the world that no one will gamble with its security ever again. And in this new chapter, America finds itself trying to figure out how quickly the story has turned around. Do you believe true respect is given freely, or must it always be earned through struggle? America always prided itself on seeing the unseen, predicting the unpredictable, and controlling the uncontrollable. But for the first time, it is being forced to admit it has a blind spot, and that blind spot is India. It has realized its friend has studied its strategies, figured out its patterns, and created counter moves sharp enough to leave even the most powerful intelligence agencies speechless. So, what is more dangerous? An enemy you already know, or a friend who knows you better than you know yourself? India has chosen not to simply defend, it has chosen to predict. This radar system is not just about stopping a spy or tracking a satellite. It is about sending a clear warning. We see you before you see us. And when a nation reaches this level of readiness, it stops being the prey and becomes the hunter instead. In your opinion, who has more power? The one who reacts or the one who predicts? For America, this is more than just a shock. It is a deep embarrassment. How could a partner, an ally, a supposed friend outsmart it so completely? The pain of betrayal is most intense when it comes from the one you thought you could count on. And perhaps this is America's biggest wound. Not India's radar, not its technology, but the realization that its own assumptions made it blind. So tell me, what hurts more? The blow from an enemy or the weight of your own mistake? The map of global politics is changing rapidly. Once upon a time, India leaned on the protection of others. But now those very protectors realize India no longer needs them. That is the real revolution. Not weapons, not satellites, not trade, but true independence in defense. For the first time, India is not waiting for anyone to step in. It is standing strong on its own, ready to protect itself and respond with force. Do you believe independence is given to you, or must it always be fought for? India has shown America that respect cannot be demanded. It must be commanded. And the way to command it is not by begging for safety, but by building it with your own strength. This is no longer just about borders. It is about dignity, pride, and survival. The stronger India makes its defense, the more it reminds the world that history is not written by the loudest voices, but by the most prepared. Do you think survival belongs to the loud or to the ready? A new silent war has now started, not a war of bullets, but of information. America listens, spies and watches, but India has cut the invisible strings of spying, completely changing the game. It has stated it will no longer be the subject of study. It will be the one writing the lessons. Do you agree that information is the most powerful weapon of all, even stronger than bombs? For America, the ground beneath its feet has shifted. For India, a new day has dawned, and for the world, a new worry has surfaced that maybe, just maybe, the balance of power is changing. The real question isn't whether India is ready for tomorrow. The true question is whether the world is ready for the new India. So tell me, does change frighten the weak, or does it frighten the powerful the most? India's strategy was never about putting on a show. It was about patience, vigilance, and acting with precision. When the moment arrived, America thought it could quietly collect information unseen. But India had already set the trap. This AI-powered radar system was not just a machine. It was both a shield and a sword. It made sure no spy, no satellite, no signal could cross without being detected. What do you think is stronger? A shield that never breaks or a sword that never misses? America assumed India would always remain dependent, never daring to question its leadership. But when the radar picked up even the faintest presence in the skies, America realized India had been transformed. This was no longer the India of yesterday. It was a nation reborn, fearless and unshakable. Just one revelation from India was enough to make America uneasy, sleepless, and doubtful of its own strategies. Sometimes fear doesn't come from an attack. It comes from the realization that you can no longer hide. Do you believe being exposed destroys power, or does it make it even more dangerous? India's action was more than defense. It was a form of retaliation wrapped in silence. Many believed this was the response to trade disagreements, to years of being pushed around in deals that always favored others. Now, instead of negotiating, India had chosen to show its power. By protecting its borders like never before, it was silently declaring to America, "We don't forget, we will repay." So let me ask you, what is the truest form of revenge? Words, weapons, or patience? For America, the shock wasn't just technical, it was emotional. To think that a partner, a friend, had prepared a system sharp enough to outsmart even its best resources was almost unbearable. But India was no longer playing games. It wasn't about emotions anymore. It was about survival. The world of politics is without mercy. Those who fail to protect themselves end up as tools in the hands of others. India decided it would never again let itself be a tool. Tell me what's worse in your eyes, being betrayed or being used. The radar was much more than technology. It was a symbol, a reminder that India's eyes were open, alert, and unblinking. Every time America's spies tried to watch, India was already watching back. It was like saying to the world, "We know your moves before you make them." That isn't just defense, that's a form of control. And so I ask you, does control come from creating fear or earning respect? The more America learned about India's growing defense, the more restless it became. Suddenly the balance had shifted. The hunter had become the hunted. The one who believed itself to be the master of surveillance was now being watched. In this shadow war, trust had died and only suspicion remained, and suspicion is the seed from which wars grow. What do you think? Do wars begin with weapons or with mistrust? The world was beginning to realize something much bigger. This wasn't merely about satellites or spying. This was India standing tall and saying, "We see you." It was about breaking the idea of weakness. For the very first time, India chose not to stay silent, not to stay polite, and not to stay dependent. And when a nation finds its voice, the world has no choice but to listen. Do you believe silence protects you or destroys you? India was once a land that put friendship above all else. It welcomed allies with open arms, trusted their words, and believed their promises. But what happens when those promises turn out to be traps? What happens when the hand you once trusted starts to pull you down? India's answer was clear: never again. Never again will trust be given blindly. Never again will defense depend on someone else's help. So tell me, what's more painful? Losing a friend or realizing they were never your friend at all? America underestimated India's silence. It thought quietness meant weakness, that patience meant giving up. But silence was India's preparation, and patience was India's weapon. When the radar caught America's hidden actions, it wasn't just machines at work. It was decades of silent strength finally speaking loudly. A whisper had become a roar. Do you believe silence hides fear or builds power? The radar wasn't just a device scanning the skies. It was a shield of dignity. Each signal intercepted was a message: you cannot walk all over us anymore. For India, this wasn't about ego. It was about honor. And honor, once awakened, is stronger than any army, because a nation without honor is already defeated. So let me ask, what do you think keeps a nation alive? Its weapons or its honor? For decades, America played the role of a teacher, watching the world as if it were a classroom. But suddenly, the roles had reversed. India had studied the lessons, mastered the book, and written its own. And now the teacher was unsettled because the student had grown beyond the classroom. This wasn't betrayal. This was evolution. And growth is the one thing no force can stop. Do you think growth creates friends or enemies? Every shadow America cast at the border was now lit up. India had lit a lamp so bright that darkness had nowhere left to hide. This lamp wasn't just a radar. It was awareness, courage, and strength all combined. It declared to the world, we are no longer in the dark. And when light arrives, darkness has no choice but to vanish. Do you think truth shines brighter in war or in peace? The revelation of India's defense struck America where it hurt most its pride. Superpowers don't fear losing battles. What they truly fear is losing control. And India had shown that control was slipping. The crown America once wore was heavy, but now it was cracked. And sometimes one crack is enough to bring an empire down. Tell me, what's harder to fix? Broken pride or broken trust? India's strength wasn't built in a single day. It was forged through years of betrayal, decades of lessons, and centuries of struggle. Every scar carried by its people, every wound in history became fuel for today's defense. The radar wasn't just powered by AI. It was the soul of a nation declaring, never again. And that soul cannot be hacked, spied on, or destroyed. What do you think lasts longer? The pain of the past or the power it creates? America may have the most advanced satellites, the most powerful weapons, the strongest allies. But what it does not have is India's will. Willpower is invisible, but it can shake mountains, change history, and rewrite destiny itself. The radar system may be the tool, but the real weapon is India's unshakable will to protect itself.